this conversation or this season will really be about what are the things that you can do and watch out for, and how are they legitimately affecting you that we are unaware of. This is one of the devil's ploys, is that things just seep in. They just seep in a little more, a little more, a little more.
Hey, welcome back to the Overflow Podcast. This is a podcast on a mission to discover how you and I can live a life of abundance, full to overflowing. For Season 4, Philip and I are talking with a mental health therapist to ask questions about anxiety and depression, how we can spot the signs, identify the causes, and fight for an overflowing life. My name is Carl Lindsay, and this is episode 26. What's up, everyone? We are back with Season 4. I'm going to be joined by Philip for the conversation in just a minute, but before we get started, I want to take a moment to set up the season for you. Over the next 2 months, we're going to be releasing segments of a long conversation that Philip and I had with Jamie Stodola. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Southern California. Philip will give her an introduction in just a moment, but right now we've just come out of May, which was Mental Health Awareness Month. If you missed it, that's what it was all about. And we really feel the need to continue this conversation beyond a single designated month. In fact, this whole podcast, we're intending to focus the conversations surrounding this theme of emotional health, this mental health. And so in today's episode, we get to know Jamie a little bit. We talk about some of the statistics that help to paint a picture of the mental health crisis that the world is currently facing. And yeah, she's going to share some of the reasons why it's getting worse and give us some hope for a better future. So if you have experienced anxiety or depression in your own life, if you know of others who have, well, please stick with us this season. We're going to be sharing each segment of our conversation every week. And so don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. That helps us. That makes sure that you won't miss an episode. And yeah, please leave us a rating or a review where possible as well. Don't forget, you can get a reflection guide for this episode to take the conversation further with your friends, get the key points at choosetooverflow.com. Well, that's enough from now. Let's jump into the conversation. Philip and I sat down with Jamie Stodola.
Carl, we're back at it, aren't we?
Season 4, here we are.
I am so excited for this season.
Yeah.
For this season, more than any other season, friends, those of you listening, we just want to encourage you, share this like crazy. So this season is dealing probably with one of the more deeper issues of just our everyday existence as human beings. How do we deal with depression and anxiety? And so many are going through that. And so please, 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 share this with friends, family, coworkers, people at church, wherever you are. This is going to be so relevant to you.
Yeah. Who are we talking to this season? We've got a special guest.
We do. I'm really excited who we have here. Before I tell you anything about her professionally, I do have to say she was a friend of mine back at Andrews University, a school back in Michigan. And it is such a beautiful place, good people there. And Jamie was one of the few alum that I know here now in California who went there. So it's good to have her here. She is not only just a friend of mine, but she's also a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Southern California. And she is so passionate about helping her clients grow into who they would like to be by supporting them in this transformation journey, Carl. She wants to guide them to heal emotionally, psychologically, and also spiritually. So the thing is, for Jamie, she wants to see you, if you're her client, recover from the lies and misbeliefs that have been keeping you from living the life of overflow, and help you discover the peace and joy found in Christ, so that you can be free from any anxiety and depression and become the person God's created you to be. This season with Jamie is going to be amazing. We're thrilled that she's been willing to kind of join us for
Mhm.
the entirety of it. So we're covering various aspects of depression and anxiety throughout the whole time. And so Jamie is really an incredible asset to us. And so we're really thrilled for that. Jamie, welcome.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be here.
Yeah, great to have you.
All right, Jamie, tell us just two things. What are some of your favorite things to do in life and your favorite food?
My favorite things to do in life, be with people.
Love it.
Nice.
Be with people, which has been I think my answer would always
Yeah.
have been that
Yeah.
that I like to be with friends. I
Yeah.
like to be around others.
Yeah.
But there's been obviously such a deficit this year.
Oh, yeah.
And it's only maybe now in the last several weeks where there seems to be a sense of normalcy in some of my potential friend groups or people around.
Yeah.
And it feels so good to be with people
Right.
and be with friends. So
Yeah.
That's good.
How do you recharge when you're with people so much in the depths of their soul? Like what hobbies do you kind of jump into that just recharge you?
it's interesting that what you're asking, because it is true. I spend all day, several hours a day, in 1 hour deep conversations where
Yeah.
I'm very interactive and paying attention. And so you'd think, wow, I mean, you're with people and talking to people the whole time you're working. But it's much different than that. It's not like being with your friends. There are definitely clients who I think to myself, I wish I could be their friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have clients that tell me that as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes those sessions are more enjoyable. But I really do completely disconnect when I leave work. And kind of wrap it up, even session to session. It's not often that I take a session home with me. I definitely pray for my clients or think about them or think of ways that I could help them or that God might be
Right.
leading us. But it's not too often that I'm super perplexed. And in those cases, I do reach out to colleagues to help me with those particular cases. So recharging for me does look like, yes, being with people, but in a much different context.
Okay. Okay.
Exercising definitely is important. Getting enough sleep is huge for me. My own personal spiritual life and prayer in my personal life are ways in which I recharge, particularly to show up for my clients.
That's awesome. That's
And
awesome.
I really believe the Holy Spirit is always there with me and gives me the words or gives me the strength. And, really I am very involved in listening to the person to try to understand them, not necessarily sitting there thinking, how am I going to respond to this person? And if I do, then I immediately turn it to a prayer. And I ask God, like, I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth next, but he guides me.
That's awesome. Love that. Love
Yeah.
that. Love that. Well, Carl and I are thrilled about this season also because we recognize that we have friends, family, people near and dear to us. And 2020 was quite the year and one for the books in so many ways, but also Carl and I saw that stats about depression, anxiety, and just this astronomical rise. And so we want to just kind of share just some statistics on depression, anxiety. And I'd love to have you kind of speak into that before we jump into some questions for you.
Yeah, so this season we want to explore with you these two big topics, anxiety and depression, because they're having an increasing influence in our world today. Even before 2020, between 1990 and 2013, the number of people suffering from depression and or anxiety increased by nearly 50%. And apparently close to 10% of the world's population is affected currently by one or both of those conditions. In the United States, anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness, affecting 40 million adults every year, which is 18% of the population. And in 2017, so not that long ago, 17 million adults reported at least one major depressive episode from the previous year, with the estimation that 21% of adults in the United States will go on to develop major depressive disorder at some point in their lives. We can talk about that later, what major depressive disorder is compared to different kinds of depression. But Finally, from data collected by the Mental Health America online screening tool, that was just last year, between January and September through the pandemic, more than 500,000 people reported signs of anxiety and or depression, with September reporting the highest rate of severity since the start in March. And anxiety screenings were up by 634% from January, and depression screenings were up 873%. So that's huge. There's a lot more to the story that we could say, of course, but I think it's clear that none of this is trending in the right direction. So that's why we're talking with you on this season, Jamie, to understand these two disorders, and how we can fight back to the abundant and overflowing life that Jesus promised us. That's what we're about.
Mm-hmm. A few thoughts as I hear you share those stats. One is that around the beginning of 2010-ish, leading then into 2013, which is that first stat that you gave, is when more people had a cell phone and had a smartphone.
Right.
Definitely there is a correlation here to the smartphone always in hand, always bothering you, always on social media, anywhere you go. There's definitely a correlation here.
Okay.
Really? So the phone and depression, anxiety go hand in hand.
Yes.
Wow.
Even if you think about it apart from social media that people could be on 24/7, now I have in my hand a device that will always alert me in an email, a text, or a phone call that's always with me. So people can't disconnect from work or other areas of life because it's always in hand, and it's expected to also always be in hand.
I think of the news apps that just breaking news, CNN, BBC, you can be told like seconds after something happens.
Yes.
And you weren't even paying attention, it just pops up on your phone.
And maybe you didn't even really want to go, no.
I don't want to go on all these things. I recently just turned off all notifications. I don't want anyone to get me. So the pings, the sounds, I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this. So I totally understand when you say that. I could see how that's so true.
Imagine then the demand that has now been increased just by having this communication device, let alone all that social media does when you're on it.
So why is all this conversation so important then? We've talked about how it's happening, but why is it important to cover this mental health topic?
Well, even just this topic right now of the statistics rising astronomically. Obviously right now I was just making mention of, that statistic up until 2013. And then there was this last year, which is a whole different bag of chips. So this conversation or this season will really be about what are the things that you can do and watch out for, and how are they legitimately affecting you that we are unaware of? This is one of the devil's ploys, is that things just seep in. They just seep in a little more, a little more, a little more. You add a new app on your phone and it automatically gives you notifications. And so the next thing you know, you got 15 different ways in which notifications are coming to you. Right? So it's just these little things that just keep seeping in. And so if we can become aware of these things and many different topics and areas as it pertains to anxiety and depression and the day-to-day choices that we make.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's the process of not realizing, just it's the light bulb moments. That's so important.
Yeah. Hey, now in your bio, you talk about how the idea of lies and misbeliefs that hold us back from freedom and this overflowing life. Can you talk to us about that idea and why we tend to believe these lies and misbeliefs?
So I think there's kind of a broad spectrum of misbeliefs that people may have that are a little more mainstream. And then there are other personal ones based on experiences that people had in their childhood. So they're kind of two different bundles at which you might look at where somebody has a misbelief. So it could be one on a more personal level. Example might be a child was somehow encouraged only as it pertains to their looks. And things were said or encouraged in a way that were not well-rounded and healthy. And so
mm,
it gives the child and now perhaps the adult just this impression that perhaps I'm only loved or accepted if I look a certain way or act a certain way.
mm.
And they might not even realize it until they kind of sit down and begin to dissect some of their thoughts and some of the reactions that they have to things going on around them.
Wow. Wow. I feel like in my own life, I definitely grew up valuing certain things, for instance, even in just what I eat. If I can think of, for instance, one way that I'm just training from my past to the present, even that is affected. I can't believe just the internal unconscious ways in which lies and misbeliefs have been kind of placed within. And I don't think parents necessarily always do that intentionally, but it is a shaping mechanism of your youth and your childhood that could bring about a sense of depression inadvertently,
Right.
simply because of mom and dad saying, hey, money is the only thing that matters here because we're struggling. Forget your personal health, forget, taking care of yourself. Just make sure you've got this and this. I was like, oh, wow.
So there are misbeliefs or lies that we believe or things that we don't quite understand or have not even searched for that matter. We're kind of just taking what the world is telling us. So, we have to be more prudent to go to God's word and look for answers to our moral beliefs, to our principles, to our values, and how those then affect and shape our thoughts and our minds. Obviously, there are other reasons why we have, anxiety and depression, but definitely the battlefield really is our mind. We're all running around like little micro battlefields for the
Yeah.
enemy.
Huh.
If he can get your mind, or even better for him, your child's mind, he's got it all.
Wow.
And he's got the society, the whole,
Right.
if he can have children, then he's got society.
That's so true. Yeah. So a lot of those people, or some of the ones, end up realizing they're in need of help, and so they end up in your office and offices of other therapists as well. Can you talk about why you want more people to understand these topics? Why have you chosen therapy as a profession, and what do you want to kind of give to the world through your job?
Ooh, there's layers of questions there, because obviously I could go back to essentially my testimony of God bringing me to this field, because I didn't go from high school to college, let alone graduating college, thinking that this is what I want to do.
Okay.
However, listening to people and caring for people, helping people, teaching, I like to teach, has always been a part of all of the choices that I've made. My parents took in foster children from quite a young age, well into my college years. But I remember at a young age, maybe around 9 years old even, where I would ask my mom, why are these kids, staying with us? Like, what happened that they have to stay with us? And she would sometimes share with me at the level in which a 9-year-old could understand. And I would still think to myself, oh, wow, I hope like they get help. And I could even kind of begin to see like where they might need help. And as a 9-year or 10-year-old. So from a young age, I was already kind of thinking about relationships and families and what affects people. And I did not necessarily grow up thinking I'm going to be a therapist.
Right.
Really it was God led, and I have a whole testimony behind that. But there was a moment in which I had a conversation with someone, and there were many other things that fed into me getting to that spot. But I said to myself at the bus stop in New York, I'm going to help families, and I'm going to help couples. And it's going to be in a church or Christian context. And that's what I'm going to do. I had no idea what an LMFT was.
Yeah.
Right.
I was very new to the field of psychology.
But from a young age, you just saw the need for people to understand, like from a third perspective, an external perspective, and just how they can move forward in life.
Yes, I've been able to see, especially getting out of grad school, going into practice, even further going into private practice, and becoming Christian private practice distinctly, how God is using me and how people need direction, a spiritual, Christian, God-centered direction. And it's beautiful to be a part of. I feel honored to do the work that I do and be trusted and to listen to people and share their vulnerabilities.
Why do you think it's so important for people to understand the issues surrounding depression and anxiety exactly?
So obviously they might be struggling, and there could be some things that we talk about even this season that would help them. Even sometimes one small thing, one daily thing can really affect the trajectory of their day and then day upon day. And obviously they could be suffering, and it could begin to affect other areas of their life and relationships, or maybe it already is. And so if they can get some help or listen to some of what we have to share, it most definitely could help to save relationships or save jobs or things like this. And then for them to know, maybe they really are not recognizing any anxiety or depression in themselves, but there might be a loved one around them that is noticing that the person is noticing they might be struggling, or maybe somebody comes to them, and because now they've kind of been made more aware, they might know how to help them.
I mean, I think of, for instance, several couples that I know of who, because one of the spouses ended up being treated for clinical depression, I mean, their marriage literally turned around. They didn't realize that underlying a lot of the arguments, the anger, the frustration, just the outbursts, there was this level of clinical depression going on that neither one of them understood, could put words to it, until one of them just said, "Hey, I think I need to go see somebody. I just don't feel right." And that was a game changer for their relationship and the other people in their life too. It wasn't just the marital partner. It's like the brother, the sister, the mom, the dad, the friends, like, "You're different." Yeah, I am, you know? So I think understanding this is so key, because we're all relational beings, and our ability to understand what's going on in our life or those near us can make a difference. I mean, you could literally save your marriage. You could save a friendship. You might save how you do work and business deals. So understanding these topics is crucial just for life.
Yeah. With we're going to hear from Jamie both these topics of anxiety and depression throughout this season. So stay tuned if you're listening in now. But we're going to talk about how we can spot the signs, how we can identify the causes, how we can overcome the setbacks, and get back to living an overflowing life. So Jamie, as we finish this introduction episode, can you give us a big picture overview of these upcoming conversations?
Okay, well, we're going to dive into what depression looks like, some of the symptoms you might be experiencing, how you might be able to help your loved ones with both anxiety and depression. And we will have a spiritual approach to this, because like I mentioned earlier, we are all like little mini battlefields between God, you, and Satan.
Right.
And he wants to control your mind. If you didn't have your mind, then what would you be? Right? Like, you can keep somebody alive, right? But they could be brain dead.
Right.
Yeah.
So we really need to protect our mind, and we do need to look at it as well through the lens of the abundance that God has for us by managing the thoughts or other areas that we might need to manage to address anxiety and depression.
So we're going to be looking at the battle going on within, and we're going to look at depression itself and how to help those who are struggling. What are some of those signs? But then also we're going to look at some of the practical ways that you can beat anxiety, that you can beat depression, and how you can even have early recognition of this so that you don't even go down that road, or someone that you know in life. So I'm really excited about this next season, Carl, and thank you, Jamie.
Thanks for listening in on our conversation today. We're going to be continuing this conversation next week when we discuss psychology and the church. So make sure to subscribe to stay connected. so you don't miss an episode this season. If you'd like to get in touch with Jamie, or if you're looking for a therapist to work with, she offers remote sessions, and so you can email her at jamie.wellbeing@gmail.com. And if you have questions or comments for us, we'd love to hear from you. You can find us on Instagram at choose2overflow, or send us an email at hello@choosetooverflow.com. Don't forget, we also have reflection guides on the website to help you continue today's conversation with your friends. That's choose2overflow.com. Thanks again for listening. We hope you choose to overflow this week. Let's chat again soon.